Hey everyone, I thought I'd jump on here and I might do a few of these where we've had some recent client success stories, and instead of just posting up on the socials in a quick, 30-second video, probably put some context around it. That way it's a little bit educational and people can try and get some value from it. So we've put together a little presentation and I'll walk through it. Let's do it. So this one's going to focus on retirement planning. So basically, it's been a long time coming for this particular couple. We've worked together closely now for over 3 years. So, before that, I had just known the guy. We had brought the wife in on the planning, and this particular strategy has taken 3.5 years. It's culminated to this point, and we'll explain why now, leading into December 22, is an important milestone for this couple. All right. So we could put some context around the couple at the time. Basically, he was 63, she was 59. Their asset base back then was around just over the $1 million mark, close to the 1.1. And yeah, I mean, they were both working. So at the time, he was working sort of just under full time. It was probably 30 hours a week. She was a full time teacher, and they wanted to really put together a plan around their retirement strategy. So now the value in seeing an advisor is basically, the first part is just understanding not only what position you're in, but what's important to you. So that's often, we spend a lot of time with clients just trying to outline what's important to you. What are you trying to achieve? Okay. So not many clients come to you with, absolute clarity around not only what position, but what are they hoping to get out of this? So, a lot of people don't know. And it's not until you sort of sit down and you talk through their situation and really hone in on what is important to them, and then put that on paper, and then all of a sudden it starts to become a little, or it starts to become a goal, and you work towards and create a plan to reach those goals. So basically, at the time, these clients were still working. As I said, they were living in Melbourne. Their kids, they're adults. Well, they were adults, grown up, moved out of the home. They were getting a little bit over the Melbourne life. Her family was from country Victoria, so they had always sort of envisaged that they were going to move out there, and that was definitely something that was important to them. Just how soon they were going to do that just really depended on when they were going to stop work, given that their work was Melbourne based. Retirement, the conservative target was 2024, which was about the 5 years from when we had first sat down. So at any stage in that 5 years was a goal, but obviously the earlier the better, but it just really had to line up with where they were at, what they were trying to achieve. We spoke about what their spending habits were and what they were likely to spend in retirement. So we targeted around that 60 grand a year just for their sort of basic expenses, and then some nice to have things on top. For instance, to enjoy regular overseas holidays is valued at around 20 grand a year. So for these guys, their expenditure in retirement was looking somewhere between 60 and 80 grand a year, which was going to give them their basic living, and then a few nice to have things like a holiday as well. Now, something that obviously they haven't come to me with, but something when you start talking to clients about, especially when people are entering that retirement phase, is making sure you're not outliving your money. So basically, we are living longer these days, just making sure that you've got enough left. When you're, let's say, mid to late 80s, early 90s, you don't want to be in a position where you've got no money left. Okay. So now a lot of that is dependent upon what are you doing today. So, and when I say, I'm putting that in the context of being a younger person. So, if you're 20, 30, 40 years old, what are you doing today to get yourself to a point where you are 60 and looking at retirement and saying, well, have I done work? Have I done the work enough to this point that I can now use, the wealth that I've created to retire on your own terms? So, um, that's financial planning in a nutshell. Basically, getting yourself from a point, in your early 20s, 30s, when you're sort of establishing yourself, get yourself to a point where you're going to be basically financially independent, and you don't have to rely on anything, for your next pay packet. So for these guys, it was important for them once we sort of, went through that to make sure they're not outliving their money. And look, it's very possible, and obviously our modeling and stuff help these clients, but it's very possible on an asset base of, around that 1.1, 1.2 for a couple, to manage their money correctly, give them the lifestyle they want, for them not to outlive their money, through to life expectancy and beyond. So, now I'm not going to go into full-on detail around the strategies that we did put in place, because that's, very technical, and obviously that's where the value is in seeing an advisor as well. But I'm going to talk about the advice outcomes. So what I had worked on from 2019 to now, what were we able to achieve? Okay, so for these clients, now they did downsize. They did downsize from Melbourne. They got a pretty penny, moved out to country Victoria, and I mean that's a proper downsize. They were able to free up quite a bit of sum of money there. Not many people obviously move from Melbourne life, 3-4 hours away into the country. Downsizes can happen in all sort of different scenarios, but if you can move from Melbourne to country Victoria, and free up 300-400 grand or so in the process, I think you've done well. So for these particular clients, they were able to retire by 2021. So COVID sort of helped that a little bit. They, as I said, they moved out of Melbourne, country Victoria. They retired a little bit earlier than we were, the least sort of period that, that the latest that they wanted to retire was 2024. So we got there sort of 3 years early. In terms of overseas trips, now, they were hoping to do the annual trips of around 20 grand a year. COVID did impact that. So during those years there, 2020, sort of even to this year in a way. So what they did was basically put that out, and they're going on a big European trip next year. So, and that's pretty much covering probably 2 to 3 years worth of holidays that they were meant to have done by now. So that's coming up for them. So big tick there. They're meeting their living expenses comfortably, and we've accounted for inflation. Obviously, we've had the large sort of rising costs of living this year. So that's all taken care of. They've also got a lot of clarity around how long their money is going to last them. So that's the value that we can provide through modelling and assessing different sort of strategies. But the one we've opted for, seeing them start to use a little bit more of their own money because they retired earlier, but they have absolute clarity around how long their money is going to last them, and they're in a very good position for it to last, well into their 90s. So, generally speaking, in retirement, with all of my retiree clients, we discuss this. You're going to spend most of your retirement money sort of in those first 5 to 10 years where you're fit and able to, travel around, to go out, enjoy yourself. I'm not saying that you can't do that, say, in your 80s, but generally speaking, by then, obviously just the circle of life, right? We slow down, we get a little bit sicker and frailer and that type of thing. So if your money can last you well into your 80s and 90s, I think you're doing really well for yourself in today's day and age. So now the secret weapon to obviously this whole 3-year strategy, and as I said, I'm not going into the technical side of it, but what I was able to do pretty early on in the piece was highlight the fact that there was a little bit of an age gap there, coupled by the fact with changing sort of, ages around sort of Centrelink age pension entitlement and all of that. So it's now, going out to 67 for everyone. For him, it was 66 and a half, which then sort of gave us an extra 6 months. But there was already about a 3-year age gap as well. So, that sort of gave us 3.5 to 4 years worth of potential planning if we got it right, where, essentially we could potentially maximise this couple's position for the age pension. Now, when I first raised this with the couple, they couldn't believe that they may be entitled to the age pension. For a couple with, net assets of over $1 million, they obviously automatically just thought we're no chance to get the pension, when that day does come. Now, the age pension is, at the end of the day, if you can get entitlement to it, why not? So, obviously we understand all the legislation and, everything we do is above board. It's just about sometimes you just got to restructure assets, right? So in this couple's case, we had 3 years to plan for it, and we were able to restructure their assets to a point where they would have, had we had done nothing, they would have gotten zero, or he would have gotten zero from the age pension when he first becomes entitled to it, which is now December 2022. This is why it's an important milestone, because all the work we've done for the last 3 years has built up to this point. So we've now completed our final part. The age pension application is in, and he is going to get, as one member of a couple, very close to the full age pension. So not quite the full pension just yet, but we envisage that probably within 6 months that will be full pension, and that will be full pension for a period, all the way out to August 2026. So, having done the math between December 22 and August 26, that puts it at around 96 fortnights, so very close to the full age pension for one member of a couple that entire time. And this strategy there alone is giving them 70 grand, or over $70,000, just over that period there to put towards their retirement. So whatever they want, that's just going to help them with cash flow. So, it can help pay for the holidays, help pay for the living expenses. It's extra money that they weren't planning for. So that's not the only value here in this strategy. So obviously I've highlighted it. It's great, fantastic. When someone can see that, they can put a dollar value on essentially the advice you're giving them. Like just going back to their goals and sort of what we've been able to achieve, obviously I didn't help out with the downsize. That's them. They've sold it, they've bought, they've done that. Yes, we helped with, managing the money and the investments along the way, help them understand their position so they could retire that little bit earlier with a lot of confidence to make sure they're not going to outlive their money, and they had clarity around how long that money is going to last and where they draw that money from. So this is where the value of an advisor, comes in over and above. Okay, on top, we're going to get you an extra $70,000 of money that you didn't have. Now, this isn't possible for every couple, but in this case here, we obviously had a bit of an age gap to plan for that. Now we're just in the sweet spot of the timing of when they seen me, the time frame of June 2019 and December 22. It's sort of all lined up perfectly for this particular clients. But I suppose the point is that I wanted to point out, the value of an advisor is not just in the dollar value of what I can get them. It's a lot of other stuff, and a lot of it, you probably can't put a value on really. Giving yourself clarity around retiring early and having the confidence to do that. That's got to be worth something in itself. This couple now have net assets close to 1.5 mil, but they're going to be getting the full age pension for nearly a 4-year period. So that's fantastic value there. But for other clients, they might be, retired and thinking, like what can I do? Look, potentially there still can be stuff that can be done. So just really depends on your scenario. For those that are entering sort of your later stages of working, generally around that age 60 is probably when most people say, all right, well, what am I doing for the next sort of 3, 4, 5 years? How can I plan? How can I change things or restructure? Yes, that's usually a bit of an age prompt where people start seeking advice. Obviously, if you've lasted this long and you're a little bit younger, it's always best to try and plan a lot earlier in life. And the earlier that you can plan, the better the outcome. All right. So I just wanted to add a little bit of context around. We're going to post this up, of course, but hopefully you got a little bit of value from that. As I said, it's not quite full on technical of what we've done. I don't think anyone's going to get value from that, but just to sort of highlight that these are the sort of typical clients that we see on a daily basis, and some we can obviously extract a lot of value, and I'm going to be highlighting these for everyone to see. If anyone wants to reach out and speak about their retirement plan, feel free. We are holistic advisors, so basically what that means is we look at everyone from whether you're age 20 to age 90. It doesn't matter. So come and have a chat to us, and we can go from there. Thanks, guys.